Louisa looked haggard as she muttered, "I just can't wrap my head around it. How could Eric, with his skills, make those Chesters obey him? And after his death, how could the Chesters listen to Serena?" Arabella explained, in his phone, Eric mentioned that during the disintegration of Doom, he secretly hid some Chesters in his territory. At first, he didn't know how to control them or make them follow orders. None of his associates knew anything about pharmacology. Then, by chance, he stumbled upon a robotic surgeon and had that doctor implant robotic brain chips into the backs of the Chesters' black heads. It was through this stroke of luck that he managed to make the Chesters work for him. As Arabella spoke, she brought up another matter. In that phone, Eric also mentioned his and Martha's private treasury. It totaled a few $1,000,000, which they left as Serena's wedding gift. No one had imagined that a steward and a nursemaid could have secretly saved so much money. Just then, Louisa's phone buzzed with a message from her dear friend Amelia, a note of concern. She was about to reply, but before even opening WhatsApp, she suddenly noticed that her favorite wallpaper was gone, replaced by a picture of the starry sky. Even more disturbing, her top contact, her beloved daughter's name, had been changed to trash. It wasn't just that, her entire contact list had been altered. The background of her chat with her daughter was now blank white, and her photo album had been wiped clean. She was livid. That Serena was utterly despicable. After fixing the contact names, she finally sent a message to Amelia. "Sorry, Amelia, I couldn't make it to your birthday. I wasn't feeling well on the way there yesterday, and something happened at home. I didn't have time to tell you." "No worries," Amelia replied. "I just wanted to check if you're feeling better. I called your home yesterday, and your daughter picked up. She's so sweet and thoughtful. The first thing she said to me was, 'Happy birthday.'" "All right, let's eat first," Bernard said, taking control of the situation. "I was considering letting them spend some time in jail to reflect on their actions, but since Kenneth has decided to kick them out, let's all, from now on, pretend that this family never existed. Let's eat." That afternoon, two headlines dominated the trending list. One announced the execution of Yolanda Murphy, the other reported that Serena was suspected of murder. The online community was in shock. Martin loved her so much, even threw her a lavish engagement party, and she had someone push his mother down the stairs on the day of their engagement. I heard his mother had a heart condition. She also orchestrated a car accident to kill Martin's sister, just because she opposed their relationship. In that case, the most innocent one in the car accident was the truck driver. It said the truck driver had elderly parents and 3 children to support. His wife now has to raise the youngest alone while caring for her in-laws. All the pressure is on her. It's heartbreaking. At that time, a button on Stinger's shirt had actually been a miniature camera given to him by Arabella. Serena's entire confession was recorded. But because the Chesters' terrifying existence could easily cause public panic, the Collins family only released one kidnapping photo to the press. Even so, that single photo was enough to cause an uproar. Insane is no longer enough to describe Serena. The Collins family treated her so well, and yet she had the nerve to turn on them, the very people who were once her closest relatives. She wanted to force Arabella and her 5 brothers to show up, just so she could ruin them all. If she couldn't have it all, neither could Arabella. That's pure evil. It all makes sense now, doesn't it? If she had been willing to change her ways, the Collins family would never have kicked her out. They only gave up on her because she was beyond saving. We were so wrong to think the Collins family were cold-hearted for pushing her away after having their own daughter. In truth, the one who was truly ruthless was Serena. I owe the Collins family an apology. I used to trash-talk them online. I had them all wrong. Is it too late for me to say sorry now? Then, a new headline exploded across social media. #Martin Serena called off engagement. I went to middle school with Serena. Martin chased her for years. If she had even the slightest redeeming quality, he wouldn't have called off the engagement. This just shows what a disappointment she really is. Martin would have walked through fire for her. He stood by her when she hit rock bottom, but she dared to plot against his own mother and sister. Thank God Martin's not blinded by love anymore. Speaking of which, is Martin in the market for a new girlfriend? 'Cause I'm available. I'd love to be Martin's girl." At the hospital, Ansel Cooper sat in a chair between two hospital beds, his heart full of longing. At last, his wife and daughter were awake. Overwhelmed with joy, he exclaimed, "Florence, Diana, you're finally awake." Florence was still in the dark about what she had been through. It felt as though she had been in a deep sleep for a long time, her whole body aching. Flashes of a car accident flickered in Diana's mind. She began to recall how her brother had insisted on marrying Serena, which had driven their mother to commit suicide by jumping from a building. She had been on her way to confront her brother when a truck came barreling towards her. In a failed attempt to dodge, she and her car had tumbled off the road. The TV in the room was airing breaking news about Martin and Serena's engagement being called off. Florence and Diana stared at the screen, almost convinced they were dreaming. They couldn't hear the reporter. All they saw was a photo of Martin and Serena at their engagement party, kissing sweetly on stage. Now, a jagged crack split the image in two, symbolizing their breakup. Florence and Diana couldn't tear their eyes away from that crack, hardly able to believe it was real. It wasn't until June and Dora came over to explain that tears began welling in their eyes. The young master found out that Madame didn't jump from the building on her own. Serena had pushed her. And the accident involving Ms. Cooper wasn't accidental either. Serena had drugged the truck driver, causing him to lose control. After learning all this, the young master beat her, threw her out, and transferred the entire estate back into the family's name. Everything she had ever touched was either burned or donated. He even blacklisted her number. Hearing this, Florence rushed into her husband's arms and burst into tears. Her foolish son had finally come to his senses. As a mother, how could she not be moved? Diana's tears soon followed. She never imagined that all of this had been Serena's doing. It was a relief that all their troubles were finally over. Her younger brother had at last seen the true colors of that manipulative witch. At that moment, Martin came to visit them as usual. Upon entering the door and seeing their tears, he glanced at the news report and quickly grasped what had happened. He walked over and embraced them. "Mom, sis, I was wrong before. I made you both suffer." Florence and Diana sobbed even harder at Martin's heartfelt words. Meanwhile, across town, in a dingy, dilapidated shack, Serena weakly lifted her eyelids. The fading light outside told her that dusk was approaching. She recognized the place. It was on the outskirts of a sprawling 30-acre fish farm owned by the Collins family. The shack had once been used to store fishing gear, fold-out chairs, and other odds and ends. Later, when it became too old, Kenneth had a new spot built nearby for fishing, resting, and entertainment. This little building was left abandoned and desolate. It had a tiled roof, a rough concrete floor, and the common red bricks found in rural areas. Serena knew that being locked here by the Collins family meant she was in a place where her screams would go unheard. She had been starving for an entire day. Her left cheek was sliced by shrapnel from an explosion, and the injury was worsened by a vicious slap from Jack. The wound still burned with pain. The door creaked open, and in walked Kenneth and Louisa, followed by a group of burly bodyguards. Serena shrank back in fear, pressing her spine against a wooden post. Louisa, as always, appeared dignified and graceful. Her noble poise and elegant manner remained, even after experiencing kidnapping and danger. She still looked every bit the refined lady. Several subordinates began punching and kicking Serena. Then Kenneth stepped forward, slapping her hard across the face before kicking her in the ribs. Louisa didn't hold back either. She grabbed a baton from one of the men and struck Serena repeatedly with force. Only after venting her rage did Louisa speak, her teeth clenched. "You tried to kill us. You didn't even spare your grandparents. And you hurt innocent people, causing so many deaths." The chief bodyguard had been killed brutally, and the young guard, Cookie, had been beaten nearly to death by Chester. Not to mention the many other guards and Arabella's own crew. "I won't let you off easy. I'll make sure you understand what happens when you hurt Bella," Louisa hissed before she and Kenneth stormed out. Before long, Hans arrived with his crew. They stuffed Serena into a sack, repeatedly dunking her in water until she was moments from suffocating, only to pull her out again, over and over, forcing her to experience the terror of drowning. Then Chaucel showed up. Knowing Serena valued her beauty, he shaved her head and eyebrows before letting a vicious dog loose on her. The animal nearly tore a chunk out of her calf and left her arms shredded and bloody. Pain overwhelmed her vision, and she fainted. When she came to, Clark, aware of her lingering feelings for Romeo, had hired a gang of vagrants to take good care of her. Sean arrived soon after, holding a switchblade, and ordered his men to carve cruel words into her face. When David arrived, he saw a person on the ground, tormented beyond recognition, a mere shadow of her former self. Without hesitation, he ordered someone to splash salt water and chilly water on her. Serena's screams pierced the air, but this was only the beginning. Time and again, they had given her countless chances, yet she never learned her lesson, only growing more audacious each time. If she hadn't brought this upon herself, she would still be the darling daughter of the Collins family, attending Summerfield College with her beloved Martin by her side and a future as bright as daylight. The Collins family would have continued treating her kindly, and the Coopers, seeing her worth, would have welcomed her as their daughter-in-law. Even after Martha and Eric had secretly helped her sell her clothes, shoes, bags, and jewelry, if she had only stopped in time, she would still have had over $100 million in her bank account. Upon marrying Martin, the wedding gifts alone would have pushed her net worth past $300 million. How many heiresses could boast such fortune? But Serena was never satisfied, always stirring up trouble, until she ended up with nothing. Elsewhere, Arabella visited her base to check on Jack and Wolf. The brothers were overjoyed to see her. Some of the men were recovering, others feigned unbearable pain, hoping to win their boss's sympathy. Stinger, waking up in his hospital bed, was stunned to find himself alive. Those around him told him Arabella had tried to carry him out of the church before the explosion, but in the end, it was Romeo who had whisked him away to safety. "Buddy, you should feel lucky being carried by Mr. Macmillan. Not just anyone gets that privilege." "Yeah, what's it like to be carried by the richest man in the world?" they teased. Stinger looked at Arabella with deep gratitude and was about to bow, but she noticed and quickly supported him. "I promised you," she said calmly. "I'll provide you with a new identity and a new life. Once you're healed, you can leave here." Her words struck him again. She was a good boss, nothing like Eric, who used them for dirty deeds while pretending to be the hero. For a moment, Stinger envied Jack and the others for having someone like her to follow. "Those who can get out of bed, come with me to give them their final send-off," Arabella ordered. Even those who couldn't walk were helped into wheelchairs, following her lead. "Boss, what about Amos and his men?" Jones asked, walking beside her. Amos wasn't one of Arabella's. He was a bodyguard for the Collins family. "I've already sent their families money as consolation. They'll be holding funerals in the next few days, and we should pay our respects," she replied. "Yes, boss." At Reflections Villa, a servant rushed in with a report. "Sir, ma'am, someone just delivered this box, specifically addressed to you." "I didn't get the chance to ask." The person left immediately. Louisa saw the servant holding an exquisitely carved wooden box, slightly larger than a jewelry case. Both Kenneth and Louisa recognized it instantly. It was the box they had won at an auction and gifted to Lucas. Lucas had loved collecting such antiquated items. When he received this box, he had treasured it for a long time, treating it as a prized possession. Unfolding the contents of the box, Kenneth and Louisa discovered a thick stack of property deeds, share transfer documents, villa keys, car keys, and other valuable items. There was also a letter inside. "Dear brother and sister-in-law, please allow us this one last occasion to address you as such. We acknowledge that we no longer deserve the titles of your siblings. Enclosed you'll find all of our assets, which have been transferred into your names. The bank cards are already in your possession, and the pin is Beverly's birthday. We wish you all the best in everything and feel incredibly fortunate to have been part of your family. We can only hope that in another life, the heavens grant Beverly and me the chance to repay your kindness. Take care, brother and sister-in-law, and to everyone, we are truly profoundly sorry." After reading the letter, Kenneth and Louisa were overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. At that moment, Kenneth's phone rang. An urgent voice came from the other end. "Mr. Collins, your brother and sister-in-law have turned themselves in at the station. They confessed to everything." Kenneth hesitated. How should he handle this? It was a deeply personal family matter for the Collins family, yet it involved serious crimes, hiring someone to commit murder, each potentially a capital offense. "Let them be," Kenneth said, not wanting to get too involved, and was about to end the call. "Mr. Collins, they could be detained. If the facts are confirmed, they might face life imprisonment, or even the death penalty. Whatever happens to them from now on, it's not my concern. Handle it as you see fit." With that, Kenneth hung up. As the new school year began, Arabella returned to a campus buzzing with whispers. Her once hidden identity was now public, and she had become something of a celebrity. During the holidays, her friends Yolanda and Serena frequently trended on social media, almost every post somehow linked to her. Everyone was curious about the drama in the grand households and impressed by how she had survived all the scheming, living so brilliantly. Since it became known that she was a distinguished professor at Summerfield College, Arabella was no longer required by her instructor to attend regular classes. Inspired by Chester's brain chip, she and Grandpa Beck collaborated on a new smart chip designed to help patients, such as controlling seizures in those with epilepsy. The initial success of their first experiment made headlines, boosting Arabella's fame even further. One day, Jack called her. "Boss, I found something. I'm not sure if I should bring it up." Arabella, in the middle of an experiment, paused her equipment and said in a cool tone, "If you don't say it now, you'll lose this month's bonus." No, I'll say it." Jack hurriedly replied. "By sheer accident, I found out that on the night you were born, Romeo's parents were at Tulip Road." Mercy Hospital, where Arabella had been born, was located on Tulip Road, at the junction of 3 cities. "What I mean is, could it be possible that the people behind all this are Romeo's parents? They've always been so kind to you, but maybe it's all a ruse to deceive you." Someone knocked on the lab door. Arabella quietly instructed, "Keep investigating." After hanging up, she called out, "Come in." The visitor was Stewart, one of Sean's men. "Miss Bella, Sean insisted on bringing you afternoon tea. I warned him I might disturb your work, but he still kicked me out of the way." Arabella flashed a nonchalant smile. "Just put it there, thank you." "Sure." Stewart set the afternoon tea on the nearby table, his eyes widening at the sight of the various gadgets and machines scattered throughout the lab. Each one was a mystery to him, and he silently marveled at Miss Bella's ability to operate such complex equipment. "Do you have anything else to say?" Arabella asked, noticing he hadn't left yet. "Miss Bella, allow me." Stewart proceeded to unwrap all the items from the tea tray, smiling as he said, "Why don't you come over and have a sip? Just for show, so I can snap a picture and report back." Arabella strolled over and picked up a cup of coffee, taking a sip. Stewart quickly took out his phone and snapped a selfie, grinning like a Cheshire cat and throwing up a peace sign. He made sure to capture both himself and Arabella in the background before sending the picture to Sean. "Why are you blocking my sister?" came Sean's disgruntled text, followed shortly by another jab, "Time to diet, big guy. Who wants to see you?" Stewart was about to explain when another message from Sean appeared, slightly accusatory. "Does my sister look unhappy? Did you force her to eat?" May the heavens bear witness. Even Master Sean, with such an honorable status, wouldn't dare bully Miss Bella. "Do you think I have the guts?" Stewart replied. "You do know yourself well," Sean shot back. Then came another question. "Does she like it? Is there any flavor she doesn't want?" "She loves it," Stewart lied smoothly. "She said your care for her is like this afternoon tea, something that warms her heart. She also said having you as a brother is the best, way better than any other." "Nonsense." Sean's reply was swift, cutting through the lie. "Are you itching for a beating? You think you can fool me with those tall tales?" He knew his darling sister would never say such things. "Come join me." Arabella's sudden invitation made Stewart swallow hard. Truth be told, he was a bit hungry. "Miss Bella asked me to join her for afternoon tea," smiley face. He texted Sean before grabbing a piece of cake and savoring the heavenly taste. "Eat more," Arabella urged, pushing the food closer to him. "It's too much for just me." "Miss Bella, you're too kind. Not only are you a beauty with a heart of gold and intelligence to match, but you also have the wisdom of a sage," Stewart praised as he ate. "Take that fire at the health department, for example. Sean worked on it for ages with no leads, and then you step in and single-handedly reveal the mastermind behind it all. You're incredible, Miss Bella, truly an inspiration." He continued without any reservations. "Back then, Sean and I went through a lot of twists and turns to investigate that fire. Remember when you and Sean were fighting over a man named Sam? You two even came to blows, but then someone shot Sam out of nowhere. You examined his wound and said the bullet was poisoned." Arabella nodded at the memory. Yes, that had happened. Stewart savored another piece of cake before continuing. "Because of the poison, you said he was beyond saving and left him behind after tossing a smoke bomb. I thought I had found a treasure and believed he could be saved, so I hurriedly drove him to the hospital. And guess what? He kept shaking, as if he was about to pass out." Stewart seemed to get carried away, vividly recounting the past. "I told him if he revealed the truth, I'd get the world's best doctors to save him. He suddenly grabbed my hand, trying desperately to say something. At the time, Stewart thought the truth was within reach. His voice now mirrored his past excitement. He was clutching me with one hand, pointing outside with the other, lips moving but no words coming out. It drove me crazy." Arabella knew why. Someone poisoned with venom vine couldn't speak or write. Their bodies would tremble uncontrollably. That was exactly why she hadn't bothered taking him with her, because it would have been futile. Then, all of a sudden, he stopped breathing. I remembered how he clung to me with one hand while pointing outside with the other, gasping for breath. Maybe he was trying to give me a clue. So I immediately reported it to Sean. He thought it was possible too, so we began wondering, could the person he was hinting at have sky, night, moon, or star in their name? Stewart's voice grew sullen. In the end, we followed that clue for a long time but found nothing. Looking back now, he was probably just pointing at nothing in particular. Got us running around for nothing. All that time and effort, wasted. Arabella, however, pressed on. What was outside at that moment? Nothing, really. From where he was lying in the car, he could probably only see the sky. I'm not even sure if the moon or stars were out. Now, thinking about it, the masterminds behind everything were Lucas and Beverly. But what did that have to do with him pointing at the sky? Perhaps he had just been pointing randomly. Suddenly, Arabella's mind drifted back to how Lucas and Beverly had looked back repeatedly before leaving Reflections Villa. Beverly had stopped first, her eyes brimming with complex emotion as she looked at Arabella. Those eyes seemed to want to say 1,000 things, yet in the end, all they gave were 2 light words, "Take care." That didn't sound like something an aunt would typically say to her niece at a farewell. It felt more like a warning, as if something might happen to her. And Lucas had shed tears too, urging her to take care of herself. She was now the Collins family's golden girl, with a loving family, a brilliant fiancé, and a bright future ahead. Wasn't that enough? Why would they tell her to take care of herself? That phrase sounded less like a casual goodbye and more like a wish for her safety. Suddenly, Martha's words flashed through her mind. I just happened to catch such a good thing and seized the opportunity. You can't handle him. Don't think too highly of yourself. Even if the Collins family combined forces, you'd be no match for him. With that thought, Arabella immediately stood up. Enjoy your meal. Please close the lab door when you leave. Hey, Miss Bella, where are you going? Stewart asked, looking confused. Arabella didn't answer. As she stepped out of the lab, her phone rang. It was Jack. Boss, I've done some digging. Before Romeo's parents went to Tulip Road, they bought a bunch of fruit bouquets. But shortly after getting onto Tulip Road, they turned their vehicle around. On their way back, George McMillian stopped at a supermarket and bought a pack of sanitary pads. Back in the day, George, a grown man, dashed into a store to buy sanitary pads, threw down a $100 bill without waiting for change, and hopped into a luxury car. It was an unusual scene, one that left a lasting impression on people. Nothing else has been found for now, came the report. But Arabella already had her suspicions. She was certain the masterminds weren't George and Jennifer. After ending the call, she made her way to the detention center, requesting to see Beverly specifically. When Beverly was brought out, her eyes were calm, almost serene, like a tranquil lake, and she exuded an aura of peace. Arabella waited for her to sit before taking her own place across the table. She studied Beverly's composed and gentle demeanor, a presence that neither boasted nor concealed anything, her emotions as still as the surface of a placid pond. "How have you been?" Beverly was the first to speak. "I'm doing well," Arabella replied, looking into her eyes with soft concern. "Auntie, have you settled in all right here?" "You still call me Auntie?" A ripple broke across Beverly's calm exterior, her gaze on her niece filled with layers of complicated feelings. "I'm doing fine." After all, the Collins family hadn't torn her apart for her unforgivable sins, nor had they made things difficult for her inside. She considered herself incredibly fortunate. "How are your grandparents and parents doing recently?" Beverly asked with concern. "They're all well," Arabella answered, her voice steady and sincere. "That's good." "Frederica and Alma are doing well too," Arabella added, seeming to anticipate her worry. "On Memorial Day they came to pay their respects, and for our family reunion day, my parents invited them over for the barbecue, and they came." Because they were innocent, Kenneth and Louisa did not blame them. Beverly hadn't expected her brother and sister-in-law to still include her children in family gatherings. Tears welled up in her eyes. At other times, Frederica is still studying abroad, and Alma is in school here. Before you turned yourselves in, you left them that house. Alma sometimes stays there on weekends. Beverly's tears fell. She hadn't expected her niece to share these details. "Alma can cook and do the dishes by herself now. Auntie, you can rest assured, she's taking good care of herself." Beverly was moved to tears again. "Thank you." Her voice was choked, and she struggled with her emotions. "Thank you all." Other than gratitude, she didn't know how else to express what she felt. Both she and her husband were imprisoned, but Kenneth and Louisa hadn't turned on them, nor had they arranged for someone inside to harm them. Outside, no one bullied their children. "Thank you for coming to see me and telling me all this." Beverly's last traces of worry faded. "I have to go now, but I'll come to visit you again," Arabella said, not staying much longer. Beverly nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. As Arabella stood to leave, Beverly suddenly called out, "Bella." Arabella paused and turned back. "Take care." It was the same phrase Beverly had said before. "Auntie, do you have any regrets?" Arabella asked. Perhaps not expecting the question, Beverly was stunned for a moment, then gave a bitter smile. "More than I can count, things left undone. I remember when your parents planned a family trip for the holidays. Since you've been back, I never got the chance to spend time with you, not even a short visit to a nearby attraction. Now that I think about it, I really do regret it." She looked at Arabella again, her eyes shining with affection. "When you have the time, you and Romeo should read poems by Thomas Gray and John Roncalli. Both of them are talented. I love reading their poems. It's too bad I'll never have that chance again. If possible, I'll just have to take my regrets to the grave." Arabella's eyes lingered in disbelief. The message Aunt Beverly had passed on. She could hardly believe it. That was impossible. How could it be them? "Could you read those poems for me, or buy me a book of poetry?" Beverly's eyes glistened, her voice quivering like fragile crystal in the quiet room. "Are those poems as fascinating as Auntie says?" Arabella asked. "When you read them, Arabella, you'll be blown away. They're even more stunning than you can imagine," Beverly assured her. "It's worth reading, I promise." "All right," Arabella nodded. "Romeo and I will definitely read it. If it's as stunning as you claim, I'll come back and talk about the poems and poets with you." "I'll hold you to that," Beverly said softly. "Stay safe." Arabella knew her aunt was worried. With a nod of understanding, she reassured her, "Don't worry, Auntie. Until next time. Goodbye." Arabella stood up and walked out. Watching her departing figure, tears suddenly spilled from Beverly's eyes like rain. Her niece was too smart. Too sharp. As soon as Arabella stepped out of the detention center, she immediately dialed Stuart's number. Stuart was in the middle of a mouthful of pastries and spoke through a muffled voice. "Hello, Miss Bella." Before Sam passed, he pointed outside. Had he seen a book of poetry written by Thomas? Arabella asked directly. "Book of poetry?" Stuart swallowed with effort, racking his brain. "I don't think so. Oh, wait. I just remembered before he died, we had walked through a bookstore. Of course there were collections of poems. Holy smokes, Miss Bella, do you have some kind of sixth sense? How did you know that?" Arabella didn't linger on the call. She hung up and immediately called Romeo, who picked up shortly after. "Have you boarded the plane yet?" she asked bluntly. Romeo, about to board, smiled at the sound of her voice. "Missing me? I'm coming back at 5 p.m., and we can have breakfast together before school." "Romeo, there's something I need to tell you," Arabella's voice tightened. "The people behind it are your uncle and aunt." Romeo's smile froze. Arabella quickly relayed the clues she had gathered. Beverly had mentioned two brilliant poets, Thomas Gray and John Donne. But when she spoke of John Donne, she deliberately said Donna, hinting she meant Donna Macmillan instead. Beverly repeatedly emphasized that when she and Romeo had the chance, they absolutely needed to read the poems written by Thomas and Donne. She had also warned Arabella that once she discovered their true colors, she would be shocked. It would be more surprising than she could ever imagine, and she would feel that the trip had been worth it. So, the masterminds behind the scenes had to be Thomas and Donna. Arabella didn't understand why they had done such things, but her first reaction was to ask, "Where are Grandma and Grandpa?" Before they left, Thomas and Donna said they were taking them abroad for vacation. Hearing this, Arabella's heart sank. They might use the guise of travel to emigrate abroad, beyond the reach of the law. In doing so, Grandma and Grandpa could become their best hostages. We'd better not tip them off. Let's find out where they are first, then we can go back together, Arabella said reassuringly. Okay, wait for my message. An hour later, Philip and Shirley hurried over to Reflections Villa. Shirley anxiously asked Edith, who was leading the way, "How's Bella? What did the doctor say? Is it serious?" Philip was clearly just as worried. They had been about to board a plane for a vacation when they heard that their beloved granddaughter-in-law had been injured during an experiment. Their concern was so great that they insisted on visiting Reflections Villa first. "I'm not sure about the specifics. The doctor just arrived." "Please don't worry, sir and madam. Miss Bella is blessed with good fortune," Edith replied. "I just hope she's not in too much pain or too frightened," Shirley said, quickening her pace. "Has Romeo arrived yet?" "Mr. Macmillan has not arrived yet," Edith answered, leading them into the main house. Following Philip and Shirley were Thomas and Donna. They had been about to whisk the elderly couple away on an overseas trip and were already on the plane staircase when Romeo called to say that Arabella had been in an accident. The two elders insisted on seeing her immediately and required Thomas and Donna to come along to show their concern. Unable to dissuade them, Thomas and Donna had no choice but to follow. After changing into slippers, Donna entered the living room with the group, only to find it empty. She quietly asked, "Where are Kenneth and Louisa?" "Since Miss Bella's accident, they've been looking after her in her room," Edith said, her face showing clear concern. Upstairs, Edith brought them to Arabella's room and knocked on the door. "Sir, madam, Miss Bella," she called, "the Macmillans are here to visit you." The door opened to reveal Louisa, her eyes still moist with tears and her face etched with worry. "You've come all this way. There are some people here who aren't good, so Grandpa and Grandma can come in first. Thomas, Donna, why don't you wait downstairs for now? Edith, could you please make them comfortable? I'll be right down." "But Bella," Donna began, ready to ask about Arabella's condition. Shirley, overcome with urgency, rushed into the room. "My sweet girl, you've been through so much." "Grandpa's here," Philip added quickly as he stepped inside. "Don't be afraid, I'm here to back you up." Louisa then closed the door behind them. "Sir, madam, please don't worry. Miss Bella has been through a lot before, and she's come through each time. She will this time as well," Edith said, extending her hand in invitation. Please follow me downstairs for a cup of tea and something to eat. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.